and welcome to yet another epic episode of Beyond Shodh. Today I am honored and delighted to have a visionary scientist who has been known for his remarkable contribution in plant biotechnology and bioinformatics, Professor Saurabh Raghuvanshi. Professor Raghuvanshi is currently leading Indian Biological Data Center housed at Regional Center for Biotechnology, Faridabad. Professor Raghuvanshi is also a professor in plant molecular biology at the Department of Plant Molecular Biology, University of Delhi South Campus, and he is also a leading expert in plant genomics and bioinformatics.
Professor Raghuvanshi done his BSc and MSc from the Lucknow University, followed by PhD in the Department of Plant Molecular Biology at the University of Delhi South Campus. He continues at the same department as postdoctoral scientist and contributed in the Indian Initiative for Rice Genome Sequencing. He also served Indraprastha University as an assistant professor before joining the Department of Plant Molecular Biology, University of Delhi South Campus as assistant professor in the year 2007. He still continues as professor in the same department, and in the year 2021, he joined the Indian Biological Data Center as lead, housed at RCB Faridabad. His research interest lies in the areas of functional genomics, data analytics, biocuration, stress tolerance of crop species, along with the development of data repositories for every biological data types. His vision aims towards the development of agri-tech solutions, capacity building, and knowledge discovery through providing the bioinformatics and data analytics support for the research community. His group published more than 50 research publications in international journals. He has several awards in his name, including the NASI Young Scientist Platinum Jubilee Award in Plant Science in the year of 2006, and also citation for outstanding contribution in the field of genomics and bioinformatics.
Without a further ado, I extend my sincere and heartfelt welcome to you, sir. Namaste and thank you for blessing Beyond Shodh.
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you for taking out the time to discuss several important things of my life and work. Yes. So, yeah, thank you.
So, sir, first of all, can you please tell us about your research interest and vision throughout your career?
Okay. So, basically, as you know, I'm a trained plant biologist. I'm a biologist, but the way you see biology is that it's a very complicated system. And there's a huge amount of data that anybody needs to generate and integrate those data sets in order to understand the entire biological system. So the basic idea is that if you have to study the biological system in its entirety, you will end up handling a lot of data sets, and that's where computational sciences come into picture, and computational biology becomes an integral part of trying to understand biology. So fundamentally, I define myself as a biologist only, but a biologist who is ready to understand computational sciences in order to understand biological systems. So this is the basic idea, and that is why I moved into computational sciences with the basic idea that we should be able to handle a lot of complicated data sets in order to understand the any biological process. So that is the basic aim. All our projects in one way or another have been targeted with this kind of idea. So that's the whole idea. To understand biological systems in their entire complexity. That's the thing.
So, sir, as you are leading IBDC since its beginning, so what is your vision and mission of IBDC, and how did DBT came up with the idea of creating such an institution? Because we have NCBI, we have other international repository, but still we don't have an Indian repository.
True. So at a collective level also, at national level, you can call it at DBT level, you can call it at national level, all biologists are actually working towards understanding these complex biological systems. Now, in order to understand these systems, it is very, very important that we have the data in a very interoperable fashion, and it is collected at a particular format where data sets are able to communicate with each other. So the answer to your question, it comes in two dimensions. One is what is technically required to understand a biological system, and another is what is the technical or the competence level that is required in India to go to that level where our lab become competent enough to understand those biological systems. So the answer is actually a mixture of both of these, that we need to have very good institutions or very good repositories where all data sets can come. And this is all the more important because since the systems are very complicated, all the research labs are actually studying or analyzing only one small part of that entire biology. But in order to understand the entire organism, all of that data has to come together. So the formats, the methods in which the data can be analyzed and integrated needs to be done. So that's why a general repository comes into picture. GenBank is basically one of them. EMBL and others, international repositories have also come up. Why India? So the point is, why not India? And the reason is twofold. One, that because there is a need to understand these complex systems, so Indian labs need to become competent enough to handle and store that kind of data. And second, India is emerging as a major superpower. It is aspiring to be a superpower. Yes. It's not a superpower, but it's aspiring to be a superpower. So it should be able to contribute at global level, not just at national, at global level towards this effort of understanding biological systems. Now, unless and until you start doing something, you don't get considered as an expert in that area. So if you want to become an expert in data science, the first thing that you need to do is to know or understand how to handle data. That is why this kind of a repository is very, very important. And that was the thought in DBT, that was the thought with the scientific community, and that is the thought even at personal level, that is the way it has to go. First, if we know that a lot of data is to be generated, it has to be first stored nicely, and then analysis can happen. And a national level competence has to come up. That's why DBT came up with this idea. And it is not that they came up with this idea overnight. This was a thought process which was probably going on for decades. And things happen when they happen. So now it has happened. So that's the whole idea.
So, sir, what type of data can be submitted at Indian Biological Data Center?
Okay, so as the mandate says, it says every kind of biological data, right? So, but that's a very large format which are there in when you say every kind of biological data. But that is true that it can take up every kind of biological data. We are starting.
So, sir, what type of data can be
services in modules? So we have started services by taking up nucleotide sequence data, that's a genome sequence data for any plant, organism, animal, or whatever. Then we have developed portal for crop phenotyping data. So crop phenotyping data is something that is hallmark. That's a central point for all national food security thing, because all breeding and all new crops that come up is actually using that crop phenotyping data sets. So that's one. Another is what is in the development is the structural biology data. Structural biology data is already there, that portal. Then metabolomic data sets, proteomic data sets, different kind of imaging data sets, and others also are in where the formats are not very well defined. So we are in the process of developing those formats also, so that ultimately we are probably in the next couple of years we would be in a capacity to take any kind of biological data. So there is in that sense IBDC becomes very unique in the manner that not many data centers, I can't recall any which will take any kind of data set. So probably in the next 3 to 4 years, this will come out as one of the unique centers at global level, where we are actually taking any kind of biological life science data. And that is important because when you have to understand that complete system, then you have to understand data sets of all types. So that's the whole idea.
So, sir, this point is regarding the data security. All users who wish to submit data here have in mind one question: whether my data will be secure or not. So, what exactly is the data policy here?
So the data policy is straightforward. It's the biotech pride guidelines, which people can find the link to that on our front end web page. The data policy is clear cut that the submission of the data and the access of data are two different things. The access, when the data can be accessed, that is decided by the submitter. So we provide different models that you can make the data visible immediately, you can make the data open access after 2 years or 1 year, but that is something that is in control of the user actually. So they can control when they want their data to be open access. So that's about policy, how we work. Another thing is their data security, how secure their data is. So, as I said that we have a disaster recovery site in NIC Bhubaneswar. So, whatever data gets submitted at data center is triplicated in the data center itself. And after that, one copy is shared with NIC Bhubaneswar. So, actually, we have 4 working copies. And that basically means that even if 1 or 2 copies go bad, the data would always be safe. So, it's an absolutely safe place. And internally also, the data center staff does not have clear-cut access to the data that is submitted unless and until the user wants them to analyze it. Even the data center staff does not have access to the data. So it is just like a bank having money, where I am the manager, probably there are a lot of other employees. But just because the money is in the bank doesn't mean that the employee can take it out unless and until the user wants it to be. So it's treated that way. Then technically, our web portals have gone through a cybersecurity certification. There is a firewall-based security implementation for the traffic. There is regular monitoring. There are a lot of protocols in operation which ensure that no breach of data happens. So we are very sensitive and active in that department where data security is concerned, because we are the data keepers for the nation as far as life science data is concerned. So the data for perpetuity is safe.
So, sir, what are the main features and facilities of IBDC, especially the high performance computing facility, and how it can extend its services to the research community of India?
Right. So this data center is housed at Regional Center for Biotechnology. This is in RCB Faridabad, and there is another remote site at NIC Bhubaneswar. The basic idea is that when you collect data of this importance and this magnitude, you have to physically segregate it in order to maintain integrity and security of the data. So that's why NIC Bhubaneswar is also there. So whatever data gets submitted here is synced at NIC Bhubaneswar in a remote manner. Now the capacity, if we talk about this data storage capacity, is about 3.2 petabytes at NIC, at IBDC, and 900 terabytes is at NIC Bhubaneswar, and they are in sync. And this capacity is probably in a year, in order to maintain integrity and security, or two, it will increase actually to almost double its capacity. The way we are actually providing services is that this entire facility has 2 major things. One is data storage capacity. Another is data analytic capacity also. So that's there are several machines, very high-end machines, having both GPU and CPU based computers, which can actually analyze huge amount of data. We did a benchmarking, and the human genome data can get analyzed within a 20 minutes time or something of that sort. So there's a huge compute facility. How we are providing access to the community at large is that we have developed computers which can actually analyze huge data submission portals where any researcher can log in and submit their data sets. That is for the data submission. And once submitted, submitter can be one, but we provide that data to thousands of different users who would like to download, and we help them in downloading that. Another outreach for services is that we also provide our data analytic infrastructure, that is the HPC, high performance computing, to all researchers across India. They need to fill a simple one-pager form, and we provide them remote access. So researchers actually don't have to actually come to the data center. They can log in on the internet from their own simple machines, from a laptop or anything, and they will get complete access to our compute facility sitting from their own place. So this is how we are working in enabling all the research labs to the use of high compute system, as well as our manpower is also competent and forthwith about it, that they interface with all the users. They tell them about how to use these things. So they are also helping them out in the data analysis. So students and research scholars, they are very happy with this thing, that they have a place where they can actually access the facility, as well as they can learn also about the data analytic systems.
So, sir, how a researcher can avail to these facilities? What exactly is the procedure to?
Right.
and what kind of support he will get from IBDC?
So it's very straightforward. There is one email ID on the website. It's given support@ibdc.rcb.res.in. So that is a email ID, the support for all data portals and services. Anybody can write on that email, and the IBDC staff, there is a designated staff which looks after any mail that comes to support at this email, and they will immediately respond to it. Depending on the requirement of the user, what is that they want, the support staff guides them. Either they need to fill up a form, or they need to conduct any workshop or whatever. So that is something that's a very straightforward thing. Write us an email, and the support staff will get back to you immediately. We respond mostly the same day. Otherwise, within 24 hours, there's a response. No issues on that.
And these data analysis and the HPC services are paid, or they are free of charge?
No, they are free of charge. It's a national facility. The government is already paying for that, and our idea is to provide it free of charge to all. So nothing is paid here. It's all free.
Great, sir. So how does this center collaborate with the national and international data centers and initiative like INSACOG, in which IBDC again played a very critical role? And for example, NIC, DBT, and how it will collaborate internationally with NCBI or ENA?
Right. So that's actually a very important aspect. The data center was envisaged to become a kind of a collaborative hub of different dimensions. So we had defined collaborative possibilities with individual labs, with bigger scientific consortiums, both national as well as international. So all those levels have been defined in the data center. If I talk about from top down, that is international collaborations. So the data center is already in collaboration with the IBDC data repository, that is European Nucleotide Data Archive, then GenBank and DDBJ. So those collaborations are already in place, and the data center, whenever the user wants, the data center is syncing their data sets seamlessly with those repositories at international level. At national level, we are providing support to all major consortium projects like INSACOG, as you mentioned. So that is the project which is undertaking the COVID-19 genome surveillance of the nation. And IBDC has enabled them a lot in developing a dedicated data portal for them, doing the data analysis. And I'm happy to report that that was our first major project actually for the data center. And it has proved to be very useful, and all the COVID-19 surveillance information that newspaper or any other articles pick up is basically based on the data that has been done at IBDC. Similarly, there is another project called the Genome India project, which is for the human genome sequencing. We are also collaborating with them. So their entire data submission and data sharing needs, the data center is able to meet. There are a lot of other collaborations in the making. So the idea is that we are providing data submission and sharing and data analytic capacities to labs and individual labs, to collaborations, to consortiums. And the basic idea is the same, to enable the entire community in this aspect.
So how do you see that this entity would contribute towards nation building in the field of biotechnology? And
you see, what will happen is, and I've said this earlier also, as human societies evolve, evolution changes the way we fight. We always fight. So earlier we used to fight with bricks and bats and everything. We are fighting with gunfire. There will be a point where people or nations will actually compete with each other in terms of data, and the fights will happen on data. That's one aspect. I would take it from other end, that collaborative phenomena will increase where nations will collaborate on data. So data from India is very important. And why it is important? Simply because India has been the cradle of advanced civilizations. The ethnic diversity of human population is huge. The biodiversity, that is the diversity of the animal and plant species in India, is very extensive. And most important thing is that it is not just extensive, traditional knowledge exists in a huge amount in India. So if this information is actually integrated and made available in a format in which anybody can use, so India would be actually contributing immensely, not to just Indian science, but to global science. And the kind of heterogeneity that we have in data becomes a test case of how much heterogeneity and how much complexity can be handled. So this phenomena, the handling of the data center is bound to become a center for this. And it's not that this will be the only data center. There will be a lot of other similar entities also, but this will act as a core model of how things can be done and how domain-specific data centers and repositories can crop up. So it will have a very, very important impact on the future of the nation in terms of data science and technical progression of the science.
Related to this, what all other services are IBDC offer to the user except for data storage and other type of maybe outreach activities, for example, training and other options?
Right. So there is a dedicated team, and that team has members from all different groups from within the data center, and they are very actively involved in doing a lot of workshops. Those workshops can be for submission of a particular kind of data. Those workshops can be for any data analytic pipeline or data analysis, any kind of data analysis. So we do a lot of outreach, and this outreach is going to increase as time moves. We will interface with even school children and college students, because the idea is very, very simple. Future biologists have to become very, very comfortable with data science, and the only way of doing that is that data science is introduced to them at a very early stage. And that's why the data center will play, it already is, and it will continue to play a very important role in outreach and making people very comfortable with the data science aspects. And it will also, one of the very interesting things which people don't realize is that data center is actually it's developing a new breed of people, because half of the people at the data center are totally IT people, and half of them are from biological sciences. Now when they work together as a team, so the way IT starts to see biological systems and way the biologists start to see a biological system in terms of an IT fundamental, that is something that does not happen all the time actually. But at data center you get that kind of an opportunity where you start to see a biological system in physical terms. And that is what is needed, because ultimately whatever nature has achieved, biological systems are the most beautiful example of what nature can achieve. But ultimately it is the atom and subatomic particles which are the basic fundamentals of a table or a human being. So why a particular mass of atoms become a table and why a particular mass of atoms become human being, that is what is need to be understood. So we need people who are understanding both IT and physical sciences, chemical sciences and biological sciences in the same mental space. That is what is very important. So my hope is that it will actually increase this kind of a thought process where you move beyond the subject boundaries. A biologist move more towards physics and IT, and an IT person should start to understand how biological systems work. So that's the whole idea.
So sir, it's also necessary because most of the core researchers, they probably lack in bioinformatics, and they don't know how to proceed with that and how to analyze data. So in that way they depend on the companies. So whatever type of data they provide, they just मान लेते हैं कि ये है. But as a bioinformatician, it's evident that this data has certain more level of complexity at that level also. So what IBDC would provide to the researchers so that they will gain the bioinformatics literacy in the form of trainings and coursework, this roadmap is there in the future plans?
Definitely. And this interpretation of the data. So the biologists know a lot about their biological system. But when it comes to the data, they find themselves limited, right? So that is the thing that we are trying to solve. Another thing that we are trying to solve is that when people look at life science data or people look at analysis data, so when the data sizes increases a particular level, so there's a difference between data and knowledge. So data is one aspect, knowledge is another aspect. So one set of data can actually lead to several different dimensions of knowledge. Now, when a biologist look at a data, they look at it from a particular perspective. They ask a particular question from this data. They will get an answer. But that does not mean that this is the only answer that this data set can provide. There are a lot of other answers. But what we need is that multiple people should be actually asking those pertinent questions from this data. That is why a collaborative phenomena is very, very important, and that is why a repository is also very important, so that you submit a data, you ask a question, go ahead with your study, but you make it available to another person who will ask a different question and then find it. It's something like you put an elephant in dark room and the scientist by touching can say, okay, I found a tail. So that's a discovery from him. Another scientist would actually say, okay, this is the trunk of that elephant. So when you when you switch on the light, you are actually looking at, okay, only 2 aspects of the data have been found. The rest is to be explored. Now, how can that happen? Not in the dark. That will only happen when the data is made available to all and everybody starts to ask questions from different aspects. So that is very important. And that is what data centers like this, they enable people to reuse the data, ask more and more different questions from the same data. And then a complete exploitation, I would say, at knowledge level happens, that whatever could be learned from a particular data set is figured. Go ahead with your.
And it is more important in cases where the researcher don't have the facility of servers and all other facilities. For example, in smaller state or smaller universities, it's not possible for them to assemble all the infrastructure for this type of data analysis. Similarly, for the plant phenotype data also, sir, because nobody has the fields available so that they can put large scale trials and all. But if that data is available to the other researchers, it's possible that they will uncover some other aspects of that also.
Yes, true.
So, sir, apart from IBDC, you have also a proper functional research laboratory at Department of Plant Molecular Biology, University of Delhi South Campus. So, what are the research focus and achievements of your lab in the areas of plant genomics, and where you are also studying microRNA and stress tolerance in rice and many other aspects?
Right. So there seem to be many other aspects, but ultimately, in my mind, they converge at a point where it is something like head and tail of an elephant. So we pick up, but as an experimental biologist, we are always restricted by the fact that we cannot study all aspects of the biology. So you need to pick. So the basic emphasis has been in the beginning was genomic based studies, where at least at a cellular level, we are able to study at global level the entire transcriptome or the entire microRNA population, how it is responding to different conditions. So microRNA biology, which are a small genes, actually the genes are not that small, their products are 21 nucleotide, their genes are kind of a normal size transcripts only. But they are interesting in the sense that they regulate the cellular phenomena by targeting other genes also. So they are very interesting. So microRNA genes which regulate plant stress, primarily we are looking in rice and drought stress. That is one of our very important aspects. We also look at epigenetic studies, how epigenetic modifications, be it DNA methylation or histone modification, how does it regulate plant response to stress, or how did different varieties of rice evolve using epigenetic phenomena. So these are the things that we primarily work on. The inception of the idea of a data center was actually, in my mind, was late at South Campus only. So and that was during the earlier work on rice genome, and then later on, we developed some digitization methods for representing biological experimental data sets. Because what happens is that most of the data that is published in scientific literature, they are in a format like in PDF or an HTML, which is good for the humans to read. It is made that way. But computers are not able to actually get hold of that idea. They can only search it, but they will not be able to understand what that data is what that data is saying. So we developed methods in which we convert those data formats, data types into formats which the computers can also understand, so that all the data can be integrated into a computational model. So these are the some aspects which we have been working at South Campus, and we continue to do that.
So how did you develop your interest and expertise in bioinformatics? Because when you are involved in rice genome, it must be difficult for you to, understand things. But what are the challenges and opportunities that you faced in your career journey?
So that was a very interesting phase of my career. I took a jump without realizing what I was jumping into. And I used to work with computers a lot. But then when I say working a lot, basically mean working with MS PowerPoint, working with Word and these things. So I used to think that I'm very good at it, right? But when I joined the Rise Genome project, it came out that actually is not needed. You need a different kind of a skill. You need to work on a much larger computer systems which work on a different operating systems, where you don't have icons to do anything. You have to work on a command line kind of a environment. So that was a very big learning phase for me. And the problem at that point of time was that it was the first genome project of India. There was hardly anybody who would actually be able to guide me as to what needs to be done. So I spent lot of hours with engineers of IT, with looking at internet and trying to figure out how these things work. And we were under a pressure because Rise Genome was an international project. And while the sequencing was being done,
that was the first project.
That was the first project in India, yeah. So the sequencing was being done, the data was getting accumulated, but it was not getting submitted simply because it was not getting analyzed. Okay. So I was under the pressure that we need to show some progress at international level. These data sets should be submitted. So I spent a lot of time. I mean, 13, 14, 15 hours. I mean, I just used to go back to sleep, and sometimes even not that, because I found the lab to be much comfortable than my room actually. So I used to sleep in the room also, in my lab also. So we spent a lot of time. Not just me, the entire team at the Rise Genome project. They spent a lot of time. So I was able to standardize how data analysis happened, and it's a self-taught thing. And that is where I realized that you can learn a lot if you just put your mind to it. तो एक वो कहते हैं ना कि फारसी को भी ना आप रोज देखो तो समझ में आने लगेगी कि ये कैसे करते क्या स्क्रिप्ट है ये. So that's what I followed, कि bit and bit, by and by, day and day, and an hour, I could actually read and understand what that manual meant. And ultimately we were able to do. And that was a proud moment for me, because I didn't go for any training internationally. We did our analysis, we did the submissions and everything. And later on I went to Cold Spring Harbor, and then I figured out that whatever I was doing was as per international standards, and they said that this is fine, you don't need to do anything else. So then I wondered that what will I do at Cold Spring Harbor then. But that was a big satisfaction that things can be, because we have this thought process, a lot of us have this thought process that if you have to do something new, the first thing that you need to do is to get out of India, learn it, and then come back. But that's not true. You have enough capacity. People over here are very, very good. You just need to give them opportunity and definitely some time, which my mentor did. I must mention that Professor Tyagi gave me ample amount of time to make blunders and do things like that, because that is how I learned, right? So he gave me enough leeway. So that needs to be done at national level, where you should give time. If the person is trying to learn, encourage them, give them time that they can do it themselves, because that is very important. That thought process that you can do it on your own. For a country like India right now, that is very much needed, because we have the entire generation most of us have a different thought process. If something challenging needs to be done, we need to find somebody to tell us how to do it. That's not done. We are very, very competent to do anything. You pick up any young boy or a girl, They are more than motivated to do this. This data center also, nobody had any training, right? Nobody had any training how these formats were there, how to develop things. They were all from different sections of technicalities. But they sat together, they figured out that, okay, this was to be done, mistakes were made, they were rectified. Who knows, ultimately the thing worked. So consistently this I have been doing. So I have a confidence that you give any kind of a problem and you give certain amount of incubation period for people to understand that. Nothing is that you can't do over here.
So, how do you see that in your career, how your family support and the role of your mentors shaped you?
Immensely. My first mentor, which I would say, was my father.
So please, name of your father.
My father, Professor S.S. Raghuvanshi. So he was a professor of cytogenetics in Department of Botany in Lucknow University, and he was also a very committed cytogenetics. So as a child, I used to see him how committed he was. He was a great teacher. I still find students whom he had taught, and they catch me just by my surname. Do you know him? I said, yes, I am his younger son. So that's a legacy actually, to be, if somebody wants to do that kind of a work. He was a great teacher, and it was with him that I developed interest in science, and unknowingly so, because in cytogenetics you need to make a lot of slides, and his PhD scholars used to do that. So I used to accompany him, or they used to go to the field and things like that. So the first thing I say was as a technical thing that I learned was how to make a slide. It was rather how to clean a slide, because that's what I was made to do. So I used to clean the slides and the cover slips. Slide is easy to clean, the cover slip is very fragile actually. So I used to break them a lot, and then that's how I understood that you have to do it in a very gentle fashion. And some of the scientific terms which I learned was when he used to practice for his lectures or classes. So there was a slide I still remember. It was a plant which was a tetraploid. So the term tetraploid I knew when I was in school. I didn't know what a tetraploid was, but I could figure out that, okay, this is the slide, so that's a tetraploid. So that's the thing. And then later on, he also taught me some very initial fundamentals of molecular biology, about cDNA libraries and things like that. So I did my MSc in biochemistry, and then joined with Professor Tyagi. Now he has been a constant source of inspiration to me. The entire basic phenomena of logical thinking, how you should approach a problem, how you should define your experiment so that you can figure out what is going wrong. That is something that I have learned from him. And he had given me ample space to do a lot of things which failed. But he mentored me anyhow. Even later on, as a scientist in the Rise project, he knew that I had not done anything of that sort. Still, he chose me. I don't know why, but he did, and I'm grateful for that. So he did give me an opportunity to actually learn, because now as a PI, I know that if there's a deadline for me, and my student says that I'm learning this thing, so it's pretty frustrating sometimes. But he gave me that leeway, and I was able to do a lot under his guidance. And that phenomena where logically you can encounter a problem, a biological problem, that is something that I learned from him. I also want to remember my biology teacher, Mrs. Mishra, who taught me in my 10th through 12th. She again is an inspiration to me. It was because of her that I joined biology. I used to like the way she taught. So those are people who have really molded my thought process. My mother's, I still read some old letters from my mother, and you can see the difference. So my father writes something to me, and then my mother writes something to me. They are in different dimensions. He is talking about what work is happening. She's talking about, are you okay? Are you healthy? And thing kind of this sort. And then my immediate family, my wife, has been a huge support. I mean, even working at the data center, I mean, the amount of time and concentration it needs. So I have never felt that I'm ignoring anybody or I'm doing that kind of. So that's a huge support which the family gives you. Especially when you take up something of this challenge, when you end up home in a totally frustrated fashion. And so I have been fortunate to have a very, very good mentor and a wonderful family. So they support me immensely.
Yes. So your son sometimes also got inspired from you, and does he
Well,
also
yeah.
show some
So,
sign of a budding scientist, future scientist?
well, he is going to be a technical person, that I can say, because he is so much into computers, and at this age, I think he has formatted his laptop on his own several times and done things which actually I also don't know how to do that in a computer. So he's very technique oriented and he loves that kind of a thing. And I still remember I was having a doubt at some point of a time whether how long should I continue working in a data center, should I do that or not. So I asked him, should I do this or not? What do you think? So he said, I like the fact that you are building a data center. That's pretty profound that he just said. I don't know whether he realized this, but this is what he said. He's excited by the fact that I am making a data center. And so yes, he does understand. He visited the data center, and he commented that this room is too big for me. Actually, you don't need that big a room. And so he's excited by computers. That is for sure. And let's see. I mean, he's too young to say anything what he will take, but he does have a very technical mind. He likes to do technical things with computers, and he has that knack to think in those terms like a computer specialist would think. So let's see. I got inspired by my father. Let's see what he takes up. Yeah.
Definitely. So, how do you see these advancements of AI and ML? They could, complement the current technologies, and then allows the discovery of what all aspects can be discovered through this in crop development also, and also in disease discovery. And
so AI is a discovery that I equate to something which mankind did a long time ago. That was finding fire. So fire is devastating also, but fire has actually molded our entire evolution. AI is also of that kind. That AI is needed immensely to understand the complexity of the data. I mean, nobody can doubt that. You can't handle the complexity of data without having machine learning phenomena. And it can help us in predicting weather. It is already doing that, but it can also help us in predicting a disease, human disease. It can help us in predicting plant diseases. It can help us in predicting patterns of crop yield potentials. Whole lot of things can be done. And especially in India, AI would be utilized and would be used in a very, very large magnitude, because of the population, the things are so complex. People are the way I imagine is that right now all of us know that about 50-60% of the population is engaged into agriculture. But the fact of life is that the financial status of that 50-60% is not very good. So they are finding other avenues to increase their revenue. Now, when that happens, there is a limit to how much productive or financially beneficial you can make agriculture, because agriculture is the basic backbone. People are ready to give any price for a medicine, but not for a bowl of rice.
yes.
So you cannot increase the prices of the food products. So that basically leaves the farmer in a dismal position where they cannot increase the price of the product, but they have to increase their own livelihood. So there is a phenomenon which is already going on that they will end up taking other professions. And the management of the agriculture needs to be done probably in a remote fashion. For example, I'm working here. I may have a field somewhere 10, 100 kilometers somewhere in one of the directions in Delhi, and I need to monitor it from here. Right now also that's happening, but as more and more, as the economy grows, the most change that will happen is in this strata of uh, population. So it will move up, and the moment it moves up, the management of the agriculture will become a problem. In that scenario, AI becomes a very, very important thing, that it can actually automate a lot of things in which agriculture can be done in a very efficient fashion. So I see a very bright future for AI. But I also caution people that AI, while it is very, very important, anything that is important can be misused, and which we are seeing these days also.
Yes.
So we have to take caution. We lose life to fire every year, every day probably, but still we use it because it is beneficial to us. So there is hardly anything in the world which does not have a negative impact. The point is that we need to balance it out. So we need to balance out the applicability of AI so that it stays useful to us and does not become a threat to us. But it is inevitable. It's a wonderful thing. And when you go to AI and you try to understand how human biology works, they are very, very similar. So we can have another debate on how AI and human biology and human evolution are kind of very similar things. That's a topic in itself. But if you have to understand the biological system, there is no way you can not use an AI. It has to be done.
So, sir, is there any priority for AI to be included in the mandates of IBDC?
IBDC, definitely. We are already moving into that. We are developing our competence so that we start using AI for image analysis, for prediction of disease, for prediction of cropping patterns or infections in crops. So those are the things which probably in the next couple of years, these things will also come up in the data center. And we are interfacing with a lot of competent groups which are beyond the data center, so that the data center provides them the infra, they provide domain specific expertise, and these things, AI based implementations, are definitely in the development.
So, sir, what are some milestone, or you can say turning point, that shaped your vision? Is there any incident or discovery that is like a turning point, that okay, now this happened, now I found my path to, further?
Yeah, I mean, if I look back, I think the first thing that really excited me about was how molecular systems are regulated. That is a molecular regulation. How things are controlled. I mean, if you look at a single cell, so those discoveries, and that is why our lab moved into regulatory biology in microRNA based regulation. That those studies really did change my thought process, because living systems are living because they respond to the environment. How they respond to the environment and how trillions of cells actually respond to that regulatory schema, those studies excite me a lot. And it is not just that human body is an end point, that everything has been achieved. It is that how did such complicated systems evolve across for thousands and thousands and millions of years? How did that happen? How did this molecular regulatory schema come into existence? Why did that happen? Our body is probably a group of trillions and trillions of cells. Why did they come together? What made them come together? Bacteria don't do that. They have a different kind of a eukaryotism came into picture. Why? I mean, we can say that we are strong, but actually we are not strong. COVID is much stronger. But now everybody knows that COVID virus is the simplest living being existing on the face of Earth. And it has actually totally devastated the most advanced species, which we think is the most advanced species. So it is something else. So why that evolution? How living beings are evolving? What is their driving force? That excites me a lot, actually. And those are the things that keep me awake also. and they keep me excited also.
So, sir, what do you suggest for India? How can India become the most popular choice for research and technology? Because most of us are like to go to abroad for higher studies.
Yeah.
And so when can we see that now people from abroad are coming to India to take up science and technology?
Actually, there are several things, but I have been thinking a lot on these lines, and there are two things which come to the mind. One is that a scientist need a straightforward society to work, right? If I have to think a solution to a problem, you can't make me sit in a room or a chair and say, start thinking. That thinking will happen even when I am moving from this place to my home, if I'm going to the market, I'm going to any place. So the society and the entire paraphernalia needs to become slightly more comfortable. You don't have to really fight for everything. That is when the mind is relaxed. You don't need to fight to every person standing in there on a red light. You know that people will stop, you know that the people will move. There's no much thought that needs to be given. So that level of, I would say, standardization, that level of stability needs to come in the society. And then that is when people from other places would like to come over here. That is one thing. And money is not that. Money, it's not a problem of money. India is spending, we can spend a lot more on the budget. I won't say that we are spending a lot. We can spend a lot more. But the basic thing is that if anybody chooses to come to work to India, what is it that that person is looking? There are two things. One, that the entire scientific society provides him or her the environment where he is able to think and work very independently, irrespective of where he is working. That independence should be implemented, not just said. And then the societal behavior, where the person is comfortable, where the person can go out without worrying much about the surrounding, can sit at any marketplace, not much chaos, can think about science. Those are the things that actually need to be done. Then people will come automatically. We go abroad, why? Because we like it there. Right? We like it because we like the way. For me, cleanliness is one of the things. I can sit anywhere. Here I can't actually. I don't, if I'm trying to buy something, if I'm trying to do something, things are very, very straightforward. You don't have to fight your way in a particular line or something. So while if you look at the scientific infra, if you look at the kind of labs that we have, there's not much difference there. The thought process is very straightforward. They know what needs to be done. Here we also know what needs to be done, but we don't seem to agree with each other. All committees, they tend up more or less, they become kind of an ineffective thing. So that thought process has to change, where if something needs to be done, then you don't need a very high sitting authority to tell you that. Even you should be able to, a group of some medium seniority people should also be able to take a decision. And they should know, okay, if this needs to be done, these are the different steps. Things need not be complicated. Getting funds should not be complicated. Utilizing the funds should not be complicated. These are the things which take up 50-60% of our time. Just the management of the funds and the administrative thing. These are the things which should be improved, and then people will come automatically.
Okay. I hope we will see that time when India will become a superpower in science and technology also. So, sir, what would you advise to the young student and aspiring scientist who want to pursue their career in science, and what all some skills and quality that they need to develop or cultivate, considering the present scenario?
Right. So I think the first and the foremost, as far as science or any technical field is concerned, or any field that requires innovation is concerned, is that students should develop that capacity to ask a pertinent question. Don't worry about the answer. Answer is an eventuality. If you ask a question, and even if you don't have an answer, you will look for an answer. But the question has to be very, very relevant. It has to be relevant. Now that relevance can be defined in many dimensions. It could be relevant to you, it could be relevant to the society, it could be relevant to the science that you are working on, whatever. But that relevance you need to figure out, but you need to ask a question. The problem right now is that many students, I have felt, have skill, but they don't know what to do with their skill. That should not be the case. So they should have a question in their mind. So the science moves on two wheels. One, you have asked the right question. You may not know the answer, but you ask the right question. And then you develop a technical expertise to conduct experiment to try to find an answer to that question. So these two things, capacity to answer, to ask a question, and technical expertise to do experiments and generate data to answer this. This technical expertise is also very important, because I've seen many people who theoretically ask very relevant question. The moment they have to prove it, everything goes off track. So a good scientist is somebody who can ask a relevant question and then devise experiments to generate data to answer the question. So this capacity, techniques you can learn in months, years, but the capacity to ask the right question takes a lot of time to develop. So that should be started as early as possible. It takes time. You will start by asking very, very relevant questions. And then how do you figure out whether it is relevant or irrelevant? Discuss. Discuss with the person who is not your friend and who doesn't want to listen to you. If you are able to engage that person into a conversation, that means you are doing something interesting. So try to develop that habit where you can ask a question, where you can try to make people who are not from your subject understand or question your thought. That is very, as a scientist, that is very, very important. So cultivate that kind of a habit. Ask a question.
Yes, very.
So cultivate that kind of a habit. Ask a question.
Yes, very, very appropriate advice, and it will help the student community for sure. So, sir, what is your future vision? Because you have now trying for still you are in your mid of your career. So, what is your future vision? What all areas you are looking, and what all expectations do you have?
So, my job is straightforward in my mind. I may end up doing a lot of different things, but ultimately, and I'm not even sure whether in my lifetime I would be able to achieve that, because I don't see that happening. But I would like to build a kind of a mathematical model or a system which understands everything, how and why a particular thing is happening within a cell. If we are able to model that kind of a thing, and we can say that, okay, we can predict that if we give increase the temperature, and I can say that if I increase the temperature by this much degree, this model organism or the model of a particular organism will behave in this fashion. That kind of a model, if I'm able to make, that would be something that would make me very, very happy. But frankly, I don't see that happening in my lifetime, because that involves a lot of data generation from all different aspects. But if we are able to make some prototype, not at a whole organism level, maybe at a single cell level, maybe at a single process level, where we are able to understand life in its very, very physical terms. Because the questions that bother me, or rather that excite me, is that the same type of atoms, when come in a particular configuration, make a living being, and when they come in a different organization, they make something else. Like if you look at human body, what is it? It is basically 60% is water, that's hydrogen and oxygen. Then you have carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, all these things only. But if you take all of this, you are not going to make a human body out of it. So you have to put them in a particular configuration. What is that configuration that makes them living? So that's my question. I don't have an answer for this. But that is something maybe at some point of time decades from now, we may have an idea why, what is that special arrangement which makes non-living entities behave as a living entity. That is the question. Let's see how far we are able to go actually on that.
Yes. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. True.
So how do you see your journey till now?
Our journey has been very exciting. We have seen, I have seen lots of ups and downs. Sometimes I feel more downs than ups. And the lesson that I have learned from my career is that your life always takes you to a point where you are totally desperate, where you think that you are at the lowest that can happen to you. And I believe that is the point where you should put your maximum effort. And that is how whenever you pick up a big challenge, there will be a stage where everything will go south. Everything will stop working. Nobody is going to help you. Not that they don't want to, they cannot probably. That is where you need to sustain yourself. And if you are not reaching that level of desperation, then I think you are not utilizing your complete power. You are not taking up challenges which are good enough for you. Then you are in a comfortable corner. It's not that it's bad idea to be in a comfortable corner. Every now and then everybody wants to be in a comfortable corner. But then again, people should challenge themselves. So my life's lesson has always been कि take a big challenge. देखा जाएगा क्या होगा. उसमें होता वही है कि success मिली and then you go down. अब उस नीचे से जो dip आता है, you have to then again come up. So this up and down, and you look at anyone's career, these things, this is how it happens. So we have had several discussions. What is most important for success? So the most important thing for your success are your failures. If you think that you are successful and you didn't have a failure, then I don't think you tried enough. You could have done a lot of other things. So if you want to succeed, you should understand how to handle your failures. Failures will come. Just know how to handle them, how to survive them. That's my lesson. That's what I have learned. So when everything goes bad, then I'm satisfied. Okay, now I'm bottom of the thing.
Something good will happen now.
Because everything bad has happened actually. So anything that will happen is going to be good only. So just survive, just keep on surviving. And the next most important thing is, if you hit a wall, that is, things are not in your control and they are not moving as you would want them to be, stop hitting your head on the wall. Accept a momentary defeat. Okay, fine. Look somewhere else. There's no point in hitting your head on the wall. No point in hitting your head. Conserve your energy. Good time will come for you. But you should have some energy when the good time comes. If you burn it out, even if an opportunity comes to you, you won't be able to do anything. So don't burn it out. बहुत ज़्यादा ऐसी जगह ना, बहुत ज़्यादा load मत लो किसी भी चीज पर. Moderate load लो. पूरा take up any challenging thing. Break it into small pieces. Every piece that you achieve is a success. Don't wait. जैसे अभी मैं कह दूं कि I will be successful if I understand the entire organism. अरे that is not going to happen probably in my or probably next 10 generations. So why take that kind of a thing? But aspire. You can always aspire. But break it into smaller pieces. Okay, if I can achieve this much, take steps. You have to climb 1,000 steps. Make a victory lap at 100 steps. एक victory तो हो गई. Then 100 steps. Then दूसरी victory हो गई. You have to live your life. You have to live your life peacefully. You can't do science if you are disgusted and if you are depressed. No new thought will come. You have to be happy. So if you have to be happy, stop banging your head on the wall. Try to find another door. That's it. Rest God will take care.
Very well said, sir. So thank you so much for taking out so much time for this conversation. I also enjoyed being on this side.
Thank you, Sonia.
Because being my guide in my PhD also, I usually on the other side where sir asks question and we will have to
she
answer.
asked.
So now I got the opportunity to ask questions, and thank you so much for answering all the doubts and sharing your vision and experiences with my audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Thank you Sonia for giving me this opportunity to record this message for sir. Sir, if there is one word that I would like to dedicate to you, describing you, would be the term mentor. You have been the true mentor to me in true sense of that word. I can proudly say that whatever I have today, the knowledge, the skill set, whatever, is what you have given me, and I'm a very proud student of Professor Raghuvanshi. I can proudly say that you have been my teacher and my guide throughout my scientific journey. I think the best thing about you as a teacher is that you always want to give your whatever knowledge you have to your students, and that's the most amazing thing about you as a teacher, and that is why you have been our favorite since MSc. As a person, I think you have that one quality which is very rare these days in our society, which is you only see the positives and the good part in people, and you don't see the not so good part of people. So it's a very rare thing to have, and also the fact that you are very accommodative. Otherwise, I don't know, but for those scientific discussions, your out of the box ideas that you have, I don't think my interest in science would have long lasted this much. So sir, again, I'm really grateful for all the mentorship that you have given me, for building me, bringing me here till here, and it's been really a proud journey, and I'm very grateful and proud to be your student. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia, for giving me this moment to express my heartfelt gratitude towards my mentor, my PhD supervisor, my guide, and also my ex-employer, Professor Saurabh Raghuvanshi. I count myself really lucky to have had the chance to work with him. He's someone who will push you to challenge yourself and eventually grow. Sir, I really admire the way you provide such a clear and concise narrative to explain even the most complicated concept or idea. And also while doing so, you cite such examples which are sometimes, from real life. They're quite witty and also sometimes very funny. Your willingness to support your students, your employees, your wise counsel, and also your insights, all these really help us to grow and achieve higher goals. All in all, I just want to thank you for being a wonderful influence in my life and an incredible guide. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tonu Angai Lajitung. I'm a PhD student working under Professor Saurabh Raghuvanshi. I would also like to add a few things about Sir. So there is no doubt Sir is one of the best bioinformatician and molecular biologists in the country. I admire and respect him a lot considering he has achieved so much at a very young age. As a guide, he is very professional but also very approachable. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to work in his lab and work under him. He has been very helpful and he is very reasonable and considerate as well. During pandemic, things went down for a lot of us, including me. During this time, Sir encouraged and motivated me a lot, and I'm truly grateful for that. And I'm also glad that he is finally back in the campus. I hope to learn a lot more in the remaining journey. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for providing me the opportunity to showcase your visionary research journey through my podcast, Beyond Shodh. And as a student, I want you to know that your mentorship extends far beyond our research, and it has had a profound impact on my life. the student-friendly ecosystem that you have created in your lab has not only supported me and but also other women candidates to effectively balance our family responsibilities alongside with our research and academic growth. Also, this support at that time, it again became very invaluable for us as it is the very foundation that allowed me to carry forward my passion for research till now. And your unconditional motivation always inspire us and challenge us to perform beyond our capabilities and excel in the areas which we never thought we can. This is precisely why all your students are trained in bioinformatics in addition to the molecular biology, and showcasing the breadth and depth of your influence. Once again, I thank you for all your immeasurable guidance and encouragement. And I also wish you all the success for your future endeavors and a very good health to you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.